Since we're working with tasks, it would be great to explore tools and features that'll help us manage those tasks. And first and foremost, views. And out of the box, we got the default view all tasks, which comes equipped with the timeline web part, first introduced in SharePoint 2013. Now, tasks are not automatically added to the timeline, but it's really easy for us to do that. We're going to use the ellipsis, these three dots, and just click it, and then click Add to Timeline, and there you are. Now, a few things to be aware of. First of all, your task item has to have date information. If it doesn't have a due date or a start date, you're going to get an error or a warning message letting you know you need some date info. Another thing to be aware of is that you might not want to put every task on the timeline. When I add this item in the past, it stretches out the timeline focus. But I also really like the fact that we can remove an item from the timeline. In fact, this is a differential between the timeline web part and, let's say, the Gantt chart view. Now, when an item is on the timeline, you can click that task and you have the option to edit data range or edit date range. And what I really like about this feature is that I can change the start date or I can change the due date, but I can also see it in context of some of the other items in my project. And you can also click on a topic or a label, and you can choose display as bar. It's kind of a shortcut way or a secret way to get to the start date, the due date, and change either of those items or both of them. Now, when an item is selected in the timeline, there's also a new tab on the ribbon, this contextual tab called Timeline. And I want to show you some of my favorite features. One of them is display as callout. And when I have a task with several subtasks, I like putting that heading task as a callout. I just think it adds a visual display. You can also change the visual appearance by selecting a task, and in the font grouping, you can put a different font, a different font size. Where it says highlight color, you can change the background color, or you can even change the font color to make things stand out. Another thing we can change is the date range. Right now, date range is actually grayed out, but once we select the timeline itself and not just a task, then you can change the date range. Just choose a custom date radio button and then choose a range, maybe this week, for example. Click on OK. And now we are locked into this particular focus. Even if we were to add another item to the timeline that's out of this date range, we don't see it. Not until we go back and we reset to the default behavior. And then we can see that item and we could quickly remove it if we wanted to as well. Another great feature here is the fact that we can add a new timeline bar. So if you wanted to see two projects simultaneously, just make sure you select that second timeline or bar, and then you can go to your ellipsis, add the timeline, and it shows up. And this timeline is all part of our default view. But let's take a look at the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart view will come with the timeline, the same one that we're working on, and then it has extra details down below. And if you expand this out, you can see a data sheet or a quick edit version on the left-hand side, which you actually can change on the fly. It's editable. And over on the right-hand side, you have visual information of if that task has a start date and an end date, if it's been completed, if it has subtasks or predecessors. A predecessor essentially means there's a task that has to be done first, or there's tasks that will be done after another one. And these are all great views, and you can use the out-of-the-box versions, or you can modify those views, or you can even create your own custom view, which is what I did right here. And if you created a view and you wanted to add the timeline to it, you're going to choose to modify that view and scroll down to the Style section, expand it, and choose Show Timeline above the view. Then scroll all the way down and click OK, and you can get the timeline in there. Now, we've been focusing on views, and especially the timeline, as a way to manage these tasks. But one quick shout out, in the List tab on the ribbon, you can also connect your information with other Microsoft products. You can take your task and link them or synchronize them to a Microsoft project or to Outlook tasks, or you can export to Excel and use that tool for analysis. As long as you have the products either locally or in the cloud, then you can hook your SharePoint content into those Microsoft products. Well, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.